According to a survey at the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, they have projected that data science jobs will grow for more than 34% from 2016 to 2026. The same source has described these careers as the fastest occupational growth in the mathematical area of the industry. You know what? We would all do well to put the focus on these types of careers, and that's exactly what we're doing with this panel discussion today. So, with that said, I'd like to invite our panelists to join me on stage, and I'll introduce them. First of all, welcome Veerle Van Leemput, an entrepreneur, data scientist, and full stack developer. She's a managing director and head of data science and analytic health, a London based company that's on a mission to accelerate innovation with healthcare by leveraging healthcare data. Veerle is a strong advocate of the R programming language, and she's passionate about sharing her knowledge when it comes to using R at the enterprise level. Next, we have Greg Coquillo. Greg is an industrial engineer with more than 10 years of experience bringing people, processes, systems, technologies, and data together with the goal of optimizing for the highest business returns. As a technology manager, he owns an AI roadmap that ensures customers are ordering products that are safe while at the same time exceeding their expectations. All right. Then we have Nikon Razumov, excuse me, Nikon Razumov Rahe. He's joining us this morning for our panel discussion. And let's see. He, sorry, um, he's a product manager at Facebook AI, more than 10 years of experience in building B2C and B2B startups from the ground up. He holds a PhD from Cambridge University, of all things, in computational neuroscience, as well as affiliations with MIT and Singularity University. As an expert in information driven product design, his publications and patents deal with how to minimize vulnerabilities resulting from sharing too much information. We could all use some help with that. Nikon's product portfolio includes semantic cyber readiness, security scorecard, automatic vendor detection, Symantec CyberWriter, Cloudflare bot management, along with other various insurance and security analytic platforms. At this time, Nikon is responsible for the privacy and developer experience of AI, data, and feature engineering at Facebook. So, wow, with such an incredible, I don't know, you might call them distinguished panel here this morning, I'm sure we're going to do justice to the subject at hand. So, let's jump right in. All right, let's see. Our first question of the day. All right, what, in your opinion, okay, what would be your best career advice for aspiring data scientists? Okay, and from an educational perspective, what would you recommend to a person that's just graduating from college? Let's start with Greg. What's your take?
Yeah, thank you for having me, Joe. And I'm honored to be among such giants today. It's a true honor. Um, so, uh, Data science is in a very interesting space. I think uh, the good thing about this one is you don't have to necessarily have an academic degree to enter that realm. I remember one of my good friends, Harpreet Sahota, said something that really stuck with me. He described how sometimes you have other specialties, like an accountant would need to have a certificate to prove that they can be professionals out there. I think the same thing can apply to a data scientist, is that they can take advantage of, if they can't go to a university, they can take advantage of these online trainings to get certificates. But that's not all. They have the opportunity to take a look at these projects or come up with some projects to build their portfolio, so they can prove that they can learn and apply these skills at a a professional environment. So that's one thing that I can open people's eyes on, these inspiring professionals. And then the other thing too is I would hope that while in college they were kind of training themselves on how to network. If they didn't do it, that's okay. As they graduate, I think one of the focus they need to one of the things they need to focus on is how to network. And while they work on building their portfolios, networking and learning how to contact people and get their attention is something that's going to get them inside in the door.
All right, very good. Great answer, Greg. I'd like to get Oscar Perez's take on this as well. Let me introduce Oscar Perez. We had some technical difficulties, but he's here. He's held executive level roles in several leading companies. Oscar brings decades of experience in international business relations, importing and exporting multi-million-dollar telecommunications equipment, negotiating with foreign governments to achieve business objectives, and working efficiently under extreme duress in several countries across South America, Central America, and the Caribbean. During his tenure at AT&T, Merrill Lynch, and other large firms, he has directed numerous successful upgrades, extensive turnkey projects, efficiency improvements, major network installations, and other revenue generating initiatives. Whether you're talking about construction, performance enhancement, network architecture, day to day operations, packet switching, fiber optic management, or high level analysis and contract management, Oscar's command in digital communications and technical savvy in three languages has set a high standard to follow for many years. And we hope that that language today will be English. So, Oscar, what's your take on this first question from an educational perspective? What would you recommend for a person just graduating from college?
Well, thank you, Joe, for that introduction. I don't know what else to say about that. Regarding that, I would mention that go to graduate school. And the reason I say that is that there are many programs out there to help the young person to be able to get a handle on what to do in industry. And the program that I would say is the most competitive is the MBA program. I find that of the graduate programs available, the MBA program is the number one. And if you look at the top 10 and you look at the other nine, all of them combined don't measure up to what the MBA program gives. And the reason I say that is because I've got an MBA myself. All of our kids, my children, my adult children, have graduate degrees. Our daughter, for instance, her name is Monica. She currently is director of counseling and medical services at a major university. She would not have gotten that job without it. Our son, who got his MBA from UNC, University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill, he is now the um, uh, chief commercial officer at Google. So the whole idea behind this is that that's how you get involved in what you need to do on an industry perspective.
All right. Excellent. Thank you, Oscar. Veerle, what's your take?
What's my take? Like, if you're just graduated, it can be quite overwhelming because there are so many things out there. You feel like you're just from school and you don't know anything yet. What I would recommend is that if you're just graduating, that you should focus on learning programs. So, for example, you have a lot of traineeships that you can follow. So instead of being thrown out into the wild, you can follow a traineeship where you actually learn how it is to work to begin with, but also learn the skills that you might need in the field. And if you choose a traineeship and you do it at a big company, then you can actually explore that company
Right.
while still being on the job. And I think learning on the job is one of the greatest things you can actually do because it's, well, win-win. You're working and you're learning. So I would definitely recommend for every graduate to look at these kind of programs because it's a great step up to begin your career.
Indeed, it is. Dr. Nikon, how do you see it?
That's right. Well, even though I am a doctor, I just want to make sure that everyone understands these are just my personal opinions. So I'm not representing anyone here. Yeah, my perspective on this is actually has been changing recently. Normally, I always thought, like you have to work really hard through the things that you're worst at. But actually, I've seen a very successful examples where you just like focus on the things that you're best at. And I think that's one of the things that I think distinguishes a lot of the employers. Instead of like keep pointing you with your nose into the things that you're making mistakes on and saying, no, fix that. Like the school, right? When we go to school, a lot of that is about, hey, you've made a mistake here, you've made a mistake here. Actually, in the professional life, you become much more successful if you focus on the things you're good at and you focus on the things you're passionate about, because it creates like a virtual cycle and you spend more time on it. It's just my interpretation why it works, but it definitely works. And so my suggestion is see what you're good at and start doubling down on it. Like I give you a couple of examples. We have lots of engineers and they have like some sort of a little passion about data science. And those engineers are actually the ones that have a much bigger impact because they come in, they're passionate about data science, they take a couple of courses, and then they become really good data scientists because they already have strong engineering background. So all of this data science that they do actually goes directly into production. So I think that is one of the tricks. You don't have to focus on the things you're bad at. Focus on the good things.
All right. Excellent. I like that. Okay. Next question. Um, so the person with the degree, as we've just discussed, they've received, you might say, the hard skills, right? The basic framework, the technical know-how, and so forth. Veerle, what soft skills do you see as being needed to be successful here?
Yeah. So often when people talk about data scientists, the first thing they think about is fancy machine learning algorithms, programming languages, all these hard skills. But actually, when you're a data scientist, and especially in the smaller companies, you're not only the programmer, you're also an analytics translator. You are somebody who needs to be able to translate questions that the business asks to you to actually analytical solutions. So you need to be able to talk to people to get really through what is the problem here and what am I trying to solve. And those communication skills, those soft skills you will need. And also, you can develop a very shiny machine learning model, which is fantastic. But if you can sell it to your colleagues, like why they should use it or why it is of value, then your machine learning model isn't worth anything. So you should also be able to present whatever you made. And I think those are actually the most important soft skills you would need in a data science role, if not any role really in a company. You need to be able to communicate and to present in order for your work to, well, actually land.
Absolutely. Greg, what's your take on this?
Yeah, I fully agree with Verla. She nailed it, and I think
Yeah.
When it comes to soft skills, you have to definitely include communication. And if you look at a data science project's life cycle, throughout, all the stakeholders ask is that we have some clear communication to make sure that no drifts is happening.
Yeah.
One of the things that I advise data science to have is to train themselves on how to be great detectives, how to really ask the good questions to understand these business problems, because that will save them a lot of times. Now, the other thing too is how to be good influencers. And to be a good influencer, you have to empathize. You have to, lead the stakeholders in the direction you would like. But for that, you have to really understand where they're coming from. So influencing with authority is something that's very key, in my opinion.
Excellent. How about you, Oscar?
Wow. These guys really nailed it. I
Yeah,
tell
they
you,
did.
if you're able to articulate or talk the talk, articulate what you know, what's in here, and be able to express it in such a way that not only other people understand it, but they see that, hey, that makes a lot of sense and it's going to work. And they're more likely to want to implement the issues that you have brought forth with the solutions that you've also come up with.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Nikon, how do you see it?
Yeah, I really liked what Greg said, because I think empathy is the key here, right? When you have empathy, you start understanding the perspective of the people you're working with. And so let me give you a brief overview of what I think is important when you understand the perspective of data scientists that have been in the industry for a while. It has been a kind of a development, like an evolution. Initially, the whole data science thing was all about, give me really cool results. I have business impact problems. Come, change this, find the solution to this problem. Everyone was just about business impact. And then slowly it evolved to, oh, wait, we actually need to put it in production. And so a lot of this was about scaling data science and putting things in production. Then once you put it in production, a lot of the customers started asking, wait, why did I get rejected? So it became all about explainability and like trying to understand what actually happens in the black box. Then after the explainability has been kind of addressed, customers were like, hey, what's happening with all my data, right? So privacy became a big issue.
Right.
And then the next stage of the evolution was, wait, I'm noticing that my friends get rejected, but I don't get rejected. The whole fairness thing came out, right? And so there is an evolution happening. And I think the last stage of this evolution is what I call machine learning experience. It's about making sure that everyone who's participating in machine learning really can participate and influence and understand what's happening. It's not only the data scientists, as you kind of pointed out, it's the business people, the engineers, the designers, the legal team, right? And so this whole machine learning experience needs to be so that everyone can participate. It's about inclusion. That's kind of my thoughts.
Excellent. All right. Well, what have we done? We have established that they have both hard skills and soft skills, right? You might say that they have pretty decent credentials. Oscar, what do you value most, experience or credentials, and why?
Well, speaking from experience, in my last assignment with AT&T, I was in cybersecurity, and you have to have experience. You
Yeah.
cannot afford to have someone come in, and the way I look at it, they got to hit the street running. When you have a cyber issue, you don't have time to think about possibilities. You've only got time to implement some well-known, specific um, uh, issue, or not issues, but things to implement or to mitigate the circumstances that you're facing. So experience is monumental in my world.
hmm Nikon, what's your perspective?
I have a pretty controversial perspective. And again, it's really mine. I'm not trying to represent anyone here, but the way I see it is, at least from credentials perspective, there is a little bit of a bias issue, because you kind of you recognize people, oh, they went to the same school, or they're probably as good as I am, right? Um, and so it kind of excludes a lot of people that are probably really good. They just happen not to be at the same school. Um, and experiences, it's kind of very similar, right? Oh, this person was a part of the competition that I was part of, or like they did the same course, right? It all comes down to, you start recognizing people and identifying yourself during the interview, because you're seeing them doing the same things as you did. And that obviously worries me a lot. And so I actually believe that some of the companies in the past or currently are kind of moving out of this, and they're really focusing only on a standardized interview with standardized
Yeah.
interview questions. And I think the reason why they do it is, obviously we understand their downsides, but one of the reasons why they do it is because it removes this bias. So they don't look at credentials, they don't look at anything that you've actually done, and you actually have real useful experiences. They have standard questions, and they ask those questions. And of course, there are downsides. But if I were from a kind of interviewee perspective, I would really focus on that. Focus on the interview. That's my answer to that.
Okay. All right. Um, let's hear what Greg has to say about this.
Yeah, it's to me it's a very hard question to answer, because it will vary with the company who's hiring, right? Um,
Mhm.
if like Oscar mentioned, there are some industries that value experience because they don't have time to train or to ramp up that training. They need somebody to come in and bring, already established framework to address specific issues. When a startup might look at a list of credentials that sends a signal that this person has the skills or many skills to address many problems that may come with managing a startup. So it really depends on the environment. And I also like what Nikon is saying is establishing a standard process where you can remove these biases is probably a good thing. You could say somebody coming in with experience will also require more money, right? So a startup may be saying, oh, well, I'm going to value the other. So it really depends on the work environment, the culture of the company, and what they really are trying to achieve and what they value as a business.
I love it. I think you give the best answer that any technical person will ever give to either a technical question or a non-technical question. It depends, right? That's always my favorite answer. All right. Okay. So, as a follow-up to this question, all right, let's suppose that we're in a situation in which experience is valued above credentials. All right. Let's flip it on its side. Sometimes that poses a conundrum, doesn't it? Right? A catch-22, if you will. How can you get the necessary experience if and when you don't even have a job to begin with? Let's start with Nikon on this one, since you have the controversial stuff that you're
That's right.
talking.
That's right. But I'm going to maintain the controversy.
Yeah, why not? Go ahead. Go for it, my friend.
I'm
You're the
gonna
doctor.
maintain-
We're both doctors. We can do it. Yeah.
That's
Go ahead.
right. That's right.
Yeah, yeah.
No, I really think that I see a lot of people that have amazing credentials or amazing experiences, and they come to the interviews. And actually, I had the same problem. I came in, I'm a doctor, and I'm like, hey, what is this question? Why are you asking me this really stupid question? What are your 3 weaknesses, right? Like, it's a classical question. And then you get angry about it because you're like, I'm way above this. I'm much better than this, right? Why are you asking, right? And I really think this humility that it's an interview and they're going to ask you very, questions that you might have opinions on, but you really need to nail that interview. And all the different industry subjects you can see, like, for example, engineering, right? Engineering has a very standardized interview now called the lead code questions, right? It's always the same questions, about 100 of them, and you need to be able to nail them. Product management has the same thing nowadays, right? It's very standard questions. You have to develop a product sense, you have to develop metrics and execution, right? Data science has the same thing, right? And so you really need to acknowledge the fact that you're going here for an interview. It doesn't matter how amazing you are. That's what I would focus on. Just nail the interview.
Yep. You got to nail it. You got to nail it. All right. What do you think, Oscar?
Oh my goodness. One of the best ways to get that experience, that on the job experience, and I have to speak from my perspective in my industry, is that if you find a school that provides you with the OJT training or on the job training,
Right.
That or internship program. And that's the reason I mentioned the my solution of getting a graduate degree, because there are many schools out there that have some tremendous training programs available that give you the experience by working with other organizations, working in industry while you're getting your degree. And that way you did both worlds. You're able to have that experience and you're able to get your education. And at the same time, you might even be able to get a job with the same place where you are doing your internship. And that's something that I've seen work on and off in my own industry.
Okay. Yeah. Well, it works with a lot of our industries, I think. And, so let me focus on something that may seem a little more technical. Veerle, what are the basics before fancy machine learning algorithms? And what should a data scientist focus on from the start of his or her career?
Yeah, so data science and fancy machine learning algorithms go hand in hand, but people often forget that there is a basis, and that basis is very boring maybe for some people, but it is statistics, and it's basic data analysis skills like visualization, understanding your data. Because most of the business problems, honestly, and I'm going to rip you of your dream here, maybe,
Yeah.
they are not solvable with machine learning. They can be solved with simple data analysis, visualization, and understanding your data. So I think, and besides that, on every machine learning algorithm, the basis is statistics. It's just that. So what I would really focus on as an aspiring data scientist is also have those basic skills under control. So make sure that you understand how your data can be distributed, how you should analyze data, how you can make the best visualizations, and start from there. And if you master that, then you can focus on fancy machine learning algorithms
Right.
that might give you extra insights on top of that.
Excellent. Greg, what can you add to this stunning insight that Veerle provided?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was
Hard to
great.
follow,
So,
right? Yeah.
absolutely. So I think, somebody who's very early in their career, whatever position they're in, I think they should focus on understanding the language across the
Yeah.
departments. There may be companies where customer churn or customer retention is expressed in different ways. So understanding
Mhm.
the business language is very key. Another thing too is understanding the processes and create some sort of data flow of that process, understanding where the data is originating to see the end to end of these processes, focusing on that,
Hmm.
understanding how dirty the data might be, and how to gather the best practices to clean that data and save you a little bit of time in the process, understanding how to communicate. Right now that you've learned
Right.
the business terms, you can communicate with that data that you're discovering, that you're exploring, communicate what you found, just like Verla was saying, how to analyze, perform some fundamental statistics, exploratory analysis of that data, visualizing this, and learn how to communicate these findings to the business. Those are the things that needs to happen first before you jump into the with the big guns.
Hmm. Well, you know what? It sounds to me, in my opinion, I don't know, no matter which way we go with this, there's going to always be challenges, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what? That's a good thing. And challenges, I don't know, they strengthen us, don't they? They build character, they prepare us for future successes, and they help us to deal with and learn from failure. I like what Robert F. Kennedy once said. Only those who dare to fail greatly can ever achieve greatly, right? So, with that in mind, let's shift gears again. All right. What would you say was one of your most challenging experiences in your varied career, and what did you learn from it? Let's start off with the controversial guy, Nikon. Sorry.
That's right. That's
I'm
right.
sorry, man. I'm sorry. No, you're
I
not controversial at all. I love what you're saying. Yeah, I love it. Go ahead.
I have another controversial thing. Actually, one of the things that I worked on was called automated vendor detection. And so the idea here
Hmm.
is that you have a company and you want to know who are they using? Are they using Microsoft Office? Are you using a Mac? Where do they store their money? Which bank they use? And this information is obviously very valuable. And so as a data scientist, you might just jump into it and you say, oh, I'm going to kind of analyze some data. But not every solution to the problem is always data science. I think that's
Yep.
for a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And so I think it's good to remind yourself, like when you have a profession, when you're like something specialized in, focus on the fact that you're trying to solve a problem, not that you have something that you want to use. Right. And in many cases, it
Right.
becomes a different type of problem. Maybe it's a scraping problem, maybe it's a scanning problem, maybe it's an engineering problem, cybersecurity problem, as Oscar mentioned, right? So solve the problems. Don't try to use your tools.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly. One could also say, eat your own dog food. Yeah, indeed. Well, that's another conversation for another time. All right. Oscar, what's your take on this?
Hey, I like what Nikon said, and I don't think
Yes.
it's controversial at all.
Nope.
When you get to be this old, I didn't grow this yesterday. It's been going on for a long time. I've been in the business for over 40 years, and you have the opportunities to get through challenging experiences, and one in particular that comes to mind is a project that I managed in Colombia. And that's not a whole lot, not too long ago. And some folks might even say in a galaxy far, 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 far away. For me, it was anyway. I was managing a turnkey project in Colombia. My company was responsible for upgrading their telecommunications infrastructure, that is into the 21st century. This would include their wireline, that's telephones, their data, the wireless communications or wireless phones, you know, these guys, cell phones,
Right.
and not only that, but the outside plant requirements. The short version, they wanted to bring their country of Colombia into the digital technology from the analog infrastructure that they had. So it was a big deal. Colombia is a country that's made up of 32 departments. They can be called departments. It can be called states or provinces. So therefore, the project was in various stages of deployment at any one particular time. That in itself was a challenging experience. So there lots of things can happen. It's almost like a juggling act. You know, you got all kinds of balls going up and down in the air, and any one of them can fall at any one time. Hopefully, it's not a big one, so it's not going to kill you. So here I am happily working in my office in the capital city, Bogota, when I get a frantic call from the president of my company. Now, I don't know how many of you have ever gotten a call from a president. I had never gotten a call from my president, so it must have been important. So he tells me that frantically that the governor of San Andres had proclaimed a cease and desist order on all the project work that was going on in his island. And he little took it seriously. He said that not only were our local contractors sent home, so this is serious stuff, all of our expats, that's our engineers, were actually escorted by the police to the airport, where they actually saw them get in the plane and leave. Some of them didn't even have an opportunity to pack before they left. Uh, Not only that, there's more. Uh, all of the materials that we had staged for the job were confiscated and sent back to customs. I had no clue. I didn't know they could do that. I still don't know they could do that. And not only that, all of the heavy equipment that we had in the island to do all this work um, was taken over by the company. In other words, by the country. In other words, it was confiscated by the government. So I honestly didn't know what to do with that. My president parting words with me was, Oscar, fix it. Just do it. And I'm thinking, geez, he wasn't alone, by the way. He had witnesses. My boss, the VP of operations, was with him, and a whole bunch of other people. I didn't even care about who they were, but I knew they were going to be looking after me. So, how do I do this? What I learned from this is how to resolve a crisis that placed a $100 million project uh, on the rocks, in jeopardy. If San Andres fell because of the political clout and the exposure that this particular governor had, the project and the rest of the country could go down the tubes as well. So we were dead in the water, no turning back. I needed to turn a lose-lose situation somehow into a win-win. So that was my dilemma.
And dilemmas are the makings of character, right? Yeah,
Right.
exactly. So, that's you might say that that's like a Kobayashi Maru, for those of you who are Star Trek fans, that is the no-win situation that everybody would like to learn how to get out of. And unfortunately, I've been told we've got a time constraint here. So one last question before we go to the questions from the audience. Um, we're talking about data science, the challenges that we have, and the different things that you got coming at you at many, from many different angles. What the past has been. What you have, what's in front of you, what you have to face. Um, what Where do you see the future of data science taking us? We have time for just one perspective. Nirla, Veerle, I can't even pronounce it. Sorry, Veerle. How do you see that? The future of data
So,
science.
So I think data science has now moved on from like this experimental play around field to a more professional field. I think data science is moving way more towards DevOps in how do you actually get all these nice algorithms into production and how are we going to make actual
Hmm.
value of it. So it's going way more from okay, we're pooling all the tools and all the techniques that we have into our company and we just do it into okay a practical solution. So how are you going
Yeah,
to monetize the value from data science and how are you going to make your solution actually practical for your company? That's where we're heading towards.
excellent, excellent. Well, thank you for your perspective, Veerle. Um, so now we have some questions that have been sent to us from our audience. First of all, networking in itself is a skill. How can we learn and excel in that skill? And how can one reach out to people? What should we talk with them when, I guess, what should we talk about? Is I think that's what they meant. What should we talk about with them when in search of internships or entry level jobs? Who would like to take this one?
I can take this one.
All right, Greg.
Uh, yeah. So first of all, Google. Okay. Use Google. Search the best practices of networking. And if you can't find anything, test the waters. If there are any trainings, I'd like to say that networking, you have to network with a purpose. Do your homework first. Whoever you are talking to, do some research. Figure out,
Hmm.
what that person is doing, what field they're evolving in, and then explain why you're reaching out and what you're trying to get out of this, and see if you can offer even your help. Sometimes these folks you're reaching out to, they don't need help particularly, but always show your availability. So bottom line is Google, use it and make your research and go test the waters, but
Right.
test it with purpose. Don't try the same thing every time thinking that you're going to get the same results. A technique might work for this one, a technique might work for the other
Yeah,
one, and then
yeah.
forget about the things you can't control. Sometimes somebody's in a bad mood, sometimes somebody's on vacation, won't respond to you in the next couple weeks. Move on, test the waters.
That's
Time is
right.
in your advantage.
I like what you said, Greg, about you try something and it doesn't work, move on. Did you know the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results? That is insanity. We have no room for that in data science. Excellent. All right. Next question. Let's see. Any suggestions for case studies? Oscar talked about being old. I'm having a hard time. Any suggestions for case studies and where one can practice some before the interviews? All right. Who'd like to take that one?
I can
All right.
address that.
Dr. Nikan. Let's hear from the doctor.
I think my perspective on this is the best way to practice is to just do it. Just apply to lots of places and then start going to the interviews. And then you will slowly get the hang of it and you will realize what kind of questions they ask. And then you will start learning more and maybe reading about the interviews. Like I think that's the trick. Go through a
Hmm.
lot of interviews and then take notes, right? Ask which
Yes.
questions have been asked, which question have you done a good job. None of the employers are trying to trick you. I think a lot of the employers actually give
Mhm.
you the questions ahead of time, right? So I know a lot of companies, they do practice rounds because of the problem with inclusivity, right? Because they know that a lot of people have a advantage because they come from a place that gave them the practice already. Maybe the university paid for practice rounds, and so there is this imbalance that some people don't get this practice rounds. And so a lot of the employers actually give you practice rounds, ask you the same question, and then ask you the same question again in the interview. So do all of this. Yeah.
I'd like to
Excellent.
add one thing, something real quick here,
Yep.
particularly to the ones who think that they cannot transfer from one position to the other, to data science, for example. Say, for example, you're an accountant and you're like, oh, data science, it's kind of hard to pierce through. Well, if you're looking for a case study, you are the case study. Your
That's
experience
right.
is the
Right.
case study, right? Take a look at your realm and then create a case study for that and apply data science to it. Your goal, your role, or your goal is to build the bridge between what you've done as
Right.
an experience with what the employer is looking for. So build that bridge with those use cases or those business cases from your own experience, so you can showcase that you can apply those skills to their business needs.
Greg, can I add something to that, Joe?
Yes. 30 seconds.
Greg, thank you very much. That was great. What I would
Yes.
add to that is you've got friends. Test out, do some role play with your friends. Go over some questions that you might find difficult for you to address and get some feedback, because that way you're able to actually see how you perform in an interview by performing in an interview with someone that in a good environment, in a safe environment, somebody that knows you, someone that can give you some feedback.
Excellent. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us today. I should say, lady and gentlemen. So, where can we find you all on social media or wherever? Nikon.
Yeah, I think my LinkedIn handle is Nikon, and there is an S in the end. Nikons. That's it. Yeah.
All right, Greg.
Whether you Google it or go straight to LinkedIn, if you type in Greg Coquillo, you will find my LinkedIn page.
Excellent. All right, Oscar.
Same for me. You go to
Same for
Oscar
you.
Perez and LinkedIn.
All right, Veerle. I'll let you finish us off.
Yeah, same for me. I don't know if there are many Veerle Van Leemputs here in in the world, but I'm sure you will find me.
That's a good point right there. Veerle Van Leemput. I love that. Man, you guys are awesome. All right. Well, folks, thank you so much for joining us today. I appreciate your time, and we've absolutely enjoyed this session. And folks, we may not have been able to get to all the questions, but perhaps we can arrange to have the questions emailed out, and we'll see how that goes. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.